Hi, this is Becky Trowbridge from eComEngine, and I'm here with Larissa and Jamie Miralles to talk about their business, Seller Success Academy, and also their Amazon business and how they use FBA processes. So I'll ask them to talk a little bit about what exactly it is that they do.
All right, well, a little bit of background. We've been on Amazon since 2009. I've been in the e-commerce industry since '97.
Wow.
So we're actually multi-channel, not just on Amazon, but also we have our own website, and we do sell on Walmart and Jet and eBay and several other marketplaces and stuff. And we also coach and consult actually on the Seller Success Academy side, where we train new sellers and existing sellers. We're kind of in a transition right now because we have a new program that actually focuses more on brand partnering. We're also actually starting a new company that focuses on servicing brands directly. So yeah, we have a lot of things going on.
So you obviously have a lot of processes happening. You're dealing with multi-channel, you're dealing with Amazon, you've got some FBA, and I know you use Restock Pro to kind of help manage the Amazon side of things, and you've created a lot of processes. Larissa just wrote this great blog post all about why it's important to have processes as an FBA seller. So do you want to share a little bit about maybe a moment that made you aware that you needed to create some processes, like something that went wrong along the line?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily even say it was anything that went wrong. We're just very lifestyle driven. Mm-hmm. And we found ourselves just very engrossed in the business for quite a few years. I mean, probably Jamie the majority of the time that he's been in it. And then a few years ago, just noticing that a lot of the processes were in our heads. They were in our heads, they were in our minds, but we definitely wanted to be able to scale and grow, but also still be able to enjoy our lives and not always be so stuck in the work. So it really, it took, the lifestyle side is so important to us because we're so, it's important for us not to be just in front of our computers all day, every day. And we realize that there's just so much more importance to life than just business. So
yeah.
My answer is probably a little bit different in that I've been in business for a long time, of course, and my hiring and management style has been to hire people and just give them anything that I can think of that has to do with work.
Yeah.
and just so that either I can delegate it or not do it at all, right? And so that really didn't work in the long term because as you had turnover, of course, that affected a lot of areas of the business. And a lot of times that would immediately land in our laps. So it kind of pulled us always in the business. And that's okay for a while when you're building the business. But, we got to a point, a couple years ago where we started traveling full time in a motorhome and also internationally. And that sometimes just was not sometimes, a lot of times it wasn't ideal for people to come back to us, to ask us a question or two. When, obviously with all the technology nowadays, you can build knowledge bases, you can have online meetings just like we are here. We could obviously create training materials, take screenshots and different things. So it just, it's not like it's rocket science or a mystery that all that stuff was possible to basically, build the standard operating procedures within a company. But even when we attempted it first, it wasn't the right time, at the time that we created those, because it just, people didn't want to adapt to it. We were all kind of set in our own ways. We didn't really force or make it mandatory within our company to keep them updated, even when we did create them. But what we find is the more we invest in doing that today, the more we can actually build roles or hire people based on roles. Everybody within our company knows exactly who to go to if something's not done.
And so it's not always you.
Yeah, and so it just creates that organization, and everybody feels confident as they're working within our company and how they're growing and what skill sets they need to kind of brush up on, and it kind of gives them direction and makes them a lot more self-sufficient. I thought in the past that by just kind of delegating to them and kind of training them to be an all-around worker within our company, that was empowering, when in reality it really was not. It was actually kind of garnering the reverse, because they didn't know what their title was. They didn't really know what the responsibilities were. They didn't really know what their future was like or what's going to become in our company versus today, it's like they know. And now it's easy for us to communicate on an equal level, anybody working for us, and say, okay, well, I know this is my role, I know these are my duties, but I also know that this is not really going to make me a lot of money, in the future if I want to move up within the company. Is there something else that another role that I can switch to? And when they do, if that is something that works for us, then there's a certain set of processes and training and things that we can steer them towards. And it's not like a mystery where we have to recreate it again.
Right, because in the past, it used to be very much just us delegating, us being more like the boss or management, versus how it is today, where we've definitely, I feel like it's a lot more leadership. It's a lot more empowerment. It's a lot more, giving them the foundation, but allowing them to be able to build upon and enhance upon their skills based off of what we've created, but allowing them to be able to optimize, to be able to give feedback, to be able to actually edit, even some of the processes that we've created in the past, or even allowing them to create them on their own now too. So it's no longer just us creating them, but our entire team as well.
But frankly, before we were all employee based, where we actually had 15 full-time employees working for us. But today, everybody that we employ now are virtual assistants. So at that point, we had to realize that, hey, these people are independent business owners themselves. So they have to be trained and conditioned. But the thing is, if we don't kind of lead them in that route, they start to become or feel like they're also employees, whether they know it or not. It's not that they have a problem with that. It's just they're not thinking in that business mentality that they are in business for themselves. And we need to, treat them as an equal, as if we're the client, not their boss.
Right. I think that was actually something that came up for me as you were talking. I think a lot of people, there's this Amazon e-commerce sensibility of, hey, let's hire a VA to delegate this task to, but there's not a lot of thought as to where that's going. It's, like, hey, I'm going to hand this over, but what's the long-term picture look like? And it sounds like you two are in a place with your business where you're really looking at the long-term, how you're going to sustain your growth and continue growing, and what you can do to keep doing that. So that's really a good place to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So as you started creating these processes, how did you communicate them to your team?
Well, we use a couple of different programs.
So we use, we're always evaluating software, number one.
Yeah.
So, if you ask us probably 3 months ago, it would have been a different set of software. Because it's always evolving, right? Like, and especially when you're trying to create, you're trying to create that perfect treasure chest of where to hold all your knowledge, because that's your bread and butter, right?
Right.
So, today, in terms of how we keep all that stuff together, we found that using Quip, for example, QUIP, it's kind of like Google Docs. It's on the cloud. It allows you to create documents with embedded spreadsheets, and you can tag people, and so it kind of keeps everything contained. There are some things that we kind of keep still in Slack that we use, depending upon being able to invite guests to it and things. Then we have we automate processes through Process Street. So Process Street has integrate hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of integrations that you can create kind of some automation between some of these software that we use. But besides that and reminders or to-do list, we have a to-do list software that we also use to kind of assign just one-off quick tasks that are not project-based. But that's it. That's about it.
It's a combination. Yeah, it's a combination of all of those things, just because each of those tools offer different types of value to each of our team members in the team. But with regard to the actual creation of the process, Process Street, for example, definitely has, the step-by-steps that you can create, but at the same time, you can always, it's a combination of written format and also video format.
Okay.
Communicating with our team members.
And we use tools like Camtasia and Snagit for like screen capture, creating videos, training materials like that. So, it just really depends. If something's a little bit more complex and we have to explain logic, in terms of how to think through something, then it's a combination of explaining that through written and video format, but also within Process Street, you can actually you can set up conditional logic. So if somebody had to make a decision at a certain point, then it would point them in the right direction depending upon what they're dealing with at that time.
Makes sense. Cool. So what strategies did you use when you started thinking like, hey, I need to delegate. I've got too much on my plate. I'm trying to run multiple businesses. I've got multiple employees. I need to get some things handed over. How did you decide what was the most valuable activity? I mean, you don't have to say what the activity is, but how did you kind of navigate that process as you were mapping out who should do what?
Well, I'm not sure if I would call it a strategy. I think it's more so philosophy.
Okay.
We're huge in personal development, number one. Like we have many, many mentors, all throughout the years and stuff. And when it comes to, we're sort of more like leaders than managers. Like we enjoy leading people because we're coaches totally outside of all of this too.
Right.
So the thing about it is that I think it's more mindset and philosophy driven in that, what we work kind of backwards. Like, we kind of plan out, okay, this is our lifestyle. This is how much time we want to spend in that lifestyle. And therefore, what threatens that lifestyle, which is usually, the work, right? And
right.
So at that point, we're reverse engineering, okay, well, we only want to work an hour or two a day. At that point, if we have 8 hours or 10 hours worth of work, a piece per day, then we write that down and take inventory of it. So it's kind of like first you define your lifestyle, then you take inventory of all the things that take away from that lifestyle. So now all of a sudden, as you're taking inventory, not only do you need to start keeping track of time of how long those tasks take and how frequently they occur throughout the week or the month, but then you also have to kind of take inventory and assign skill sets to those, right?
Right.
What does it take to actually do those tasks? And then at that point, once you go through that process, now you're trying to figure out, okay, well, we have I guess this is a strategy, but it's kind of a strategy of elimination, or what we call sometimes drag, in the sense that what is it out of all the stuff that we're doing that, since we're taking inventory of it right now, can we eliminate or is acting as drag? Drag is something that I define as something that slows down the progress of the business, that if you were to give it up, it would actually, even if it was a profitable activity, even if you were to give it up, it would actually accelerate, you to your goal, whatever it is that you're after, right? And elimination just in general, like what are things that we're not using, or what is it something that somebody's doing that is just not even paying for their time to go do it, or our time to go do it. So we go through that process so that we can whittle down or that list. And then at that point, then when we go out to hire, the way that we teach hiring virtual assistants is you look for the most qualified person to do a certain skill set or just one task, and maintain, to maintain in the company. Therefore they're coming in already qualified. It doesn't matter what they cost. We're never about like, oh, let's go find somebody that at $2 or $5 an hour. If that's what they're at, the rate is at, great. But if they're like $20 to $50 an hour, great, because we acknowledge and recognize that, hey, maybe they're so good that they may even do it better than us, and they may even do it faster than us, that, yeah, they're $50 an hour, but they finish something that took us 4 hours in 1 hour.
Right.
So we start looking at that, and then we just basically get into the mode of now, okay, do we have a process in place for it? Because if we don't, we're not just going to go train them verbally or on the computer or, face-to-face like this and expect that they would do well. We want to have a process in place so that we can measure key performance indicators that we demand or standards within our company, so that we can tell them if and when they're doing a good job, or maybe we don't have to tell them anything, right? The software sometimes that we use will keep them in place, because if they do this or that, maybe the software won't allow them to, because we didn't make that available to them. But it's a philosophy of letting go, and also I think the philosophy of we're a results-oriented work environment, which means that everything is results-driven. Like, I don't care how long something takes, I don't care how much something takes, as long as we can afford to do it. But what we measure everything by is results. If somebody messes up, if we still got the result, I don't care about your mess up. Yeah. It's just more about, like, just get it done. We have VAs that work for us that when we first employed them, when we weren't in this mode of results-oriented yet, they would come in and say, okay, I got 40 hours to offer you. And I said, okay, I'll pay you this, right? And then all of a sudden, we're keeping track track of time. How long did you work? Why were you late? Why did you quit early? Type of thing. Today, it's very different. It's kind of like, okay, you got 40 hours to give. If you can finish everything in a month in 5 hours, that's fine. If it show up on our radar as a red blip, you can do whatever you want. Make up your own schedule. At that point, it really empowers them to create their own schedule, ensure that what we need done gets done at the time, and they start to also are able to rate the task based upon priority level. So then the training becomes more about training them how to produce and maintain results versus, trying to manage the person itself. Because managing people is really not that fun for anybody involved, right? But managing the results keeps everybody excited. They're all looking forward to the future. They're winning, whether it be small or big wins. And we're able to celebrate those versus anyone or everyone focused on all the challenges of being in business just in general, right?
Right, because the result or the end goal is what we all have in mind. So if we can create a process, work with the right team, and even optimize how we do certain things within our company, it's only going to get us that much closer to our bigger goals that we have for the company, or even have for our passions or our lifestyle or whatever it may be.
Yeah, you're empowering your employees to do the same thing that you're doing, which is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I can totally see how both of you are successful coaches, because that was really inspirational and awesome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So I think to kind of wrap up, I was curious if there was like a nugget of, your best advice for people in e-commerce that are trying to get organized and really create these types of processes.
I think that one of the first exercises that I believe somebody needs to institute is really assessing what sort of outlook or lifestyle they're really aiming for. Because that's the mistake that I've been in business for 23 years now. And for the first 14, 15 years of that, I was just engrossed and addicted to my businesses. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't matter if I spent 80 hours. I would never complain. I would say that I loved spending 80 hours or more on my business. But the thing is that I didn't really I had a lot of coaches and mentors who taught me how to make a lot of money, but I didn't have anyone to teach me about what life was all about, right? I mean, in school, in formal schooling, they don't really teach you how to have a lifestyle. I mean, they taught you life skills, but they didn't really teach you how to have a lifestyle. Like if you love to travel, how do you make that happen, versus having only 2 or 4 weeks out of the year to do it, right?
Right.
Or have a lot of money to go do it, or both, or something like that. So I think if you define a lifestyle and whatever it is that you're passionate about that within that lifestyle, then that should be how you plan your business. That's what you should plan your business around, versus the reverse, where what I did in the past for the majority of my career is that I built the business as big as I could get it. Then whatever little bit of time that was left, try to fit my life into that, right?
And Larissa's like, hey,
yeah.
I'm here.
That's exactly where I was going. I mean, we've been together for about 8 years now. And when she came into my life, I mean, the importance and the stress of family, of time, of spending time together, and traveling, passion work. I'm not even talking about like work necessarily in a professional manner, but what about personal hobbies, and things that we enjoy doing, right? So I didn't really, so I had to kind of learn new life strategies, in terms of like, well, I never thought about what I wanted my life to look like besides the traditional things such as being married, having kids, a house, a car, right? Totally outside of that, there was health, there was external relationships, not just the internal or the given relationships in terms of family, right? There were missions, there was so much more to it, right?
Right.
That had to be also something that we're, even today, we still go through the process of learning through other sets or types of coaches or mentors. So the thing about it is, if you don't sit down and think about that, and all you're doing is business, no matter how much you enjoy it, that will become your life. And that's okay if that's what you want it to be. But once you start to have a significant other, once you start to have children, and your children start to have children, like if you're not thinking about your legacy, what you're leaving behind, and that line of family in what they will want from you while you're alive, right, and how you want to be remembered, then you're just being plain selfish. You know, it doesn't matter how much if you stay single for the rest of your life and you have no family members living, then maybe that's okay, right? But that's not really, that I don't believe that anybody's in that situation or position, right? So realistically, there is more to it than just us. We cannot be selfish just because we have a flourishing business or flourishing or in survival mode in business, right? There's more to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more to life than just business. And I think when you can identify what those important elements are in your life, it can really direct you and guide you on what to prioritize, what needs to be in place or what can be in place that isn't currently in place right now, so you can really create or design that life and business that you truly are after. I mean, all of this we're very much aligned with how we view our life goals and our business goals. But with regard to a person just getting started, I say just get started. You know, start as soon as you can. It's not about perfection. It's all about progress. And so using what Jamie had stated, identify what you want in life first, and then just getting started can really get you far in all that you're after, and you can really see what you can create within your business to use your business as a tool to be able to, again, design the lifestyle that you're after.
An expectation out of that exercise is to find what you can be passionate about outside of your business, because if that's all you've known because you've been doing it for so many years, so that you can have something else motivate and drive you to get up in the morning and do what you need to do, but take yourself back out of it. You know, for us, we build businesses to create income streams for us in support of our lifestyle. We don't build businesses so we can live in it.
Right.
You know, that's a thing that a lot of people, because a lot of people fall into this business, right? You know, the thing with me is, like, I've always been business driven. I'm an old fashioned businessman versus other people who, you know, anything that shows them that there's a potential to profit or make money, it's like they'll do all of that. And then all of a sudden, no matter what's profitable, they keep all of it, and then they keep building. What they're not noticing is that everything that they keep dedicating, you know, their time to make money is eating up all of their time. And all of a sudden, you know, there's life. You know, all of a sudden you're 45 years old, 50 years old, and you're still, you know, working just as hard as when you were 20 in your business. You know, that's not okay with me anymore.
I think it's an interesting paradox, right? Because a lot of people, I feel like they go to e-commerce because they want this freedom and flexibility, and, you know, there's a way to create a passive income, especially if they're selling through FBA, and then they kind of end up in this place where they just don't know. They're spending all their time, like you said, just focused on business tasks.
Yeah. What's the use of Amazon FBA or Amazon doing 80% of the workload for you, right? That's why we do FBA versus FBM. Or fulfilled, right? What's the use of Amazon doing 80% of the work for you, and then you're just giving it another 100%?
Right.
You know, right? Like, you need to really recognize what's going on in your world, because there's nothing honorable about hustling, you know, all the time or for decades, right? I used to be proud of that word hustle, and it's like, now to me that's just hard work. You know, hustle is so overrated because of Gary Vee, right? Like, I'm a big fan of Gary Vee, but there's certain things like, come on now, hustle for a little bit, now then move on.
Right.
Move on. Like, there's always, like, when people talk about up leveling or next level and all that stuff, it's like, next level is measured in what's your life look like behind the scenes, because that's really what I want to measure. I don't care if you make more money than me. All I care about is, what is your lifestyle like? Like, you know, in the past, you know, even 5 years ago, I was 40, 50 pounds overweight. You know, because I was just sat behind the computer and did my thing, and people saw all the things, all the material things, but they didn't see how my life was falling apart, you know, and behind the scenes. And that's the thing, right? And if you keep going the way you are, and you're the head of your household, you're just going to pass that on to your kids and your wife or whoever you're with, right? Like, it's like an infection. You got to stop it now, or else you're just not going to know where your life's going to go.
All interesting thoughts. Is there anything else that you want to share before we end the call?
I think that's it. We got a lot to share. We could be on this call for 10 hours.
We really
if you allow us to.
We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime.
Thank you so much.
All right.